You are listening to the Archancients, where the trowel and the truth unveil the past. I am your host, Josue Soto, and today we have a very special guest with us in our studio, Achia Kohn-Tavor, all the way from the land of Israel. Perhaps you have seen him debut on various news outlets or on educational YouTube channels. He has also made an appearance on Expedition Unknown, is that correct? And with Josh Gates. If you haven't seen that, you should check that out. He is a distinguished scholar and a professional archaeologist. He lives and works in the beautiful land of Israel. When he is not wearing his wide-brimmed excavation hat, he bears the hat of husband and father to a beautiful family I've seen in your photos. He has studied and trained under the heavyweight and archaeological prestige of Professor Amichai Massar at Hebrew University. And in 2020, and correct me if I have any of these dates wrong, but in 2020, Achia made headlines with his excavations at ancient Chorazin, where he has discovered the first century evidence, and more is still coming forth from the ground even now in connection to the biblical story. In 2014, he co-excavated a Roman period underground water system. He and this is just a little bit, we're just scratching the surface. He has many years of experience excavating the land and uncovering all of its secrets. He is intimately connected to the land, the history, and the archaeology. As of recent, religious, historical, and archaeological news outlets are buzzing with excitement to celebrate the discovery of the ancient town of Bethsaida. Am I saying that correct? Bethsaida?
Yeah, Bethsaida is the pronunciation.
And it's a famously known town. If you are familiar with the New Testament, if you're familiar with biblical history, it's mentioned as a very significant, important town in the life of Jesus, especially. And to discuss this archaeological excavation and its significance, we give a warm welcome to archaeologist and scholar Dr. Achia Kohn-Tavor, and I want to greet you in Hebrew, Naim Me'od, Adon Achia, Mashlomcha. If I said that correctly.
That, thank you very much for to having me over here. I really believe that archaeology should be delivered more, more than just articles, and to the public, to the wider audience. So thank you for having me here.
And thank you for making this time to meet with me, even though we are separated by so many miles across the sea. You would have to take a very long plane flight in many airports to meet. But thanks to this technology, we can meet virtually like this. And so again, thank you for making time. It's in your country, it's the afternoon. Over here, it's the morning for the audience who doesn't understand our time difference. And as you know, Achia, I am a student of archaeology, and I love following along on your social media. You have various media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, or all of these, YouTube, and you provide a lot of updates, pictures, videos on a weekly basis. And ever since I had learned about you through, believe it or not, through YouTube, Sergio and Rhoda in Israel, I knew immediately I needed to reach out to you and have a discussion about your research and everything that is going on So this podcast show is all about archaeology, and my goal is to inspire my audience, a new generation of archaeologists, and whoever is listening, to educate and spread this awareness about our history and excavation. And so before we jump into the main topic today about Bethsaida, for those that do not know you or your background, share with us a little bit about yourself and why did you choose to pursue archaeology? I'm sorry. Why what has made you into an archaeologist that you are today?
Oh, so thank you again, and I'm trying my best. And so it's not like, I had a call from birth or whatever. And obviously, as any other person in the Holy Land, you are aware of the great happenings and finds that are in this land, connected to this land, and obviously the heritage of the three big monotheistic religions that are rooted in the Holy Land, especially Christianity and Judaism. And as you know, the person who lives here, you are always aware of what's going on around. I haven't been involved in anything archaeology specific. I mean, they took us, my teacher in the seventh and eighth grade took us for a couple of days excavation, but we did also lots of stuff, agriculture stuff, usual school learning stuff. It's not that I was concentrated in archaeology, but after my service, and a person needs to go to college and you have to learn something, so you have to choose something. And I had a few options. In university, I went to the Hebrew University, as you said, and I chose one, and this was archaeology. It was funny enough because the professor in the first lesson asked, "So who is here to become an archaeologist?" And out of the 60 something people that were there, it was obvious to me that everybody who comes to learn archaeology came to be an archaeologist, but I was the only one who raised his hand. And because most people can, it's humanities, you just do a degree and then you keep on with anything else. And they all remember that till today. They remind me, "Yeah, you remember that." So we are still four of us still in archaeology. Um, but it's not obvious that to take a degree in archaeology, humanities, and you could keep on with that. But for me, it was when you go and learn something, this is what you do. So I took the first and second degree in archaeology and the university, and then continued on and on. Later did the PhD, and people ask me, "So why and how many years did you take in college or university and stuff?" And I said, "Listen, I just learn every day, as anything else, and especially in archaeology. Archaeology is not just the lessons in the university in file of slides or whatever. It's the fields that the actual learning is done by you when you're really doing it, whether it's like processing pottery in the laboratory or really excavating the field or whatever. You really need to touch the material, and that's the only way to really learn."
Mhm. And you studied and trained under professors like Amihai Mazar. What is it like? He is related to the great Mazar family, who has had left such a great impression in their archaeological research over the years. Was this very impressionable upon you and your training?
Yeah, so I was very lucky for throughout my career to be linked and work with people like Ami Mazar. Ami Mazar is Yisrael Prize winner and one of the most appreciate archaeologists in Israel, definitely when you're talking about um, the Old Testament period, the Iron Age, and so on. And I've been privileged. He asked me to join him when I was undergraduate at the excavation of Tel Rehov in the Beit Shan Valley, and then he asked me to continue with him into the secondary to, researching, surveying the vicinity of Tel Rehov. So that's my master's degree, is about the vicinity of Tel Rehov in the Iron Age and the Old Testament period. And other excavators and professionals that I've been working, like Moti Avian that I'm working with today, and many others. What I really appreciate those people is to being, in Yiddish they say a mensch. They were the first people, and they treat everyone as another person on an iron level, and I can really appreciate it. And you can see it also in the academic approach, because they really weigh their words. It's not like, some scholars would jump to conclusions and publish many articles, and then some of their work is correct, and some of that they have to reconsider the earlier published work. Ami Mazar is renowned for really, his words, when they're said, are taken very seriously. It was well known that he's weighed and measured, and so many others of my college. So, and Ami Mazar specifically, just saying his name in many other stages. Well, so you Ami's so good.
and and today, you right now your name is floating around the internet and YouTube, um, and especially connected with Bethsaida. But for those that do not know about the bulk of your research, you've spent quite a few years now, actually, aside from what we're going to talk about in Bethsaida, but also Chorazin. Can you share a little bit about that, and just briefly, when did you start that project, and how does that connect you to Bethsaida? Because they're very close in proximity, actually, right? They're right on the Galilee.
Yeah, so not only close, like 10 minutes drive, Bethsaida and Chorazin, and Bethsaida in the Hebrew pronunciation, as you said before, but they're also mentioned in the same verse at Mark 11, if I'm not mistaken. Woe to you, Bethsaida, woe to you, Chorazin. But I would, just say a couple of words before that. When you become an archaeologist, you need to find your niche. Either if you are lucky enough to get a position in some kind of institution, that's awesome. That's the best. It's not an easy target to put. There are many contestants about that, and you can always work in the IAA, the Israel Antique Authority. They usually do salvage excavation, like want to build a road. There are 30,000 archaeological sites in Israel alone. So lots of development projects need to handle the antiquities before they go into construction. I was there also. I worked for SY for 5 years, and I've done some salvage excavations aside of that. But in the last 10 years or more, I'm concentrating on more like tourist archaeology, meaning bring the archaeology to the wide audience, because I really believe this is like Hannah, my wife, once asked me, okay, that's all nice. You were working together in that field, and suddenly you pick up that shard or coin, and you show me, you see those 3 stones, or that's a wall, and that's a church, and whatever, and so on and so forth. But okay, so it's all nice, this archaeology stuff, but so what? So, like, okay, so what?
Mm.
I had to give it some thought, and I came up with a thought that what I'm really looking for is not the pottery, coins, walls, whatever, is more the people behind those artifacts. Because archaeology is a science which specializes in researching the human culture through the objects. But it's not the objects we're looking for. I mean, personally, I'm looking for the people, the humans behind those objects. And so, if it's humans and it's human culture, it belongs to humanity. And I believe that it's not should not stay just in articles or professionals, but exactly as you do is bring it out to people, whether it's when you're listening to the podcast, on when you drive down wherever you are, or when you're elementary student, or when you were tourist. So in the last 10 years or more, most of what I do is work with people who come for either a tour or a lecture or even a first-hand experience in archaeology. And now most people, you're students of archaeology, and when you go to college, university, what you expect is a hard labor day of 8 hours of moving dirt and stuff like this. Not everybody is capable, definitely not in the heat of the Middle East. And I totally realize it, but I do believe that people should get the chance to do it, to get their first-hand experience, dig in, literally in the past, in their own roots. And so we have an opportunity in Chorazin for people to come for an hour, 2 hours, tour around the site, and I show you the ancient synagogues that we found, the first century remains, and the house of people that were dug, and then go in just for an hour, dig. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 1 year old or 100 years old, no matter your physical capabilities. If you're interested, you can do it. You can come and excavate with me, and I'll tailor the itinerary is your dimensions, and because I believe that you own this right to touch your heritage. Now, a heritage is a big word, and I mean, I work also with local elementary school kids, so their heritage is like, okay, that's a site which is right by my school, so that's my local. But if you come from America, for instance, so your heritage might be um, Jesus and the apostles. It's your heritage, and you want to come and touch that. So, is it spiritual? Is it local heritage? My goal is to provide that to you as much as possible.
And Achia, that you've touched on other questions that I really wanted to ask you, which is great because I wanted to know what is your approach, your ethos, your philosophy to the archaeology, and as you've mentioned, something so significant, and yet many times, especially in the world of archaeology, especially back in the 1900s, 1970s, we're how shall I say, we're beginning to bring humanity back into it. We're beginning to be sensitive to the descendant communities that these material objects and artifacts are connected to. You're bringing humanity back to the excavation, to the artifacts that are being found. They're not just objects; they are in some ways still alive when we can connect it to the people. And so when I see you with one hand in the present and one hand in the past.
So,
Yes.
so
What are you going to?
and there is what you spoke about, and I what mentioned before is, what do you do with archaeology? What is archaeology for? And I mean, it's all okay if you, like some of my colleagues would believe in pure academic work, and that's all fine. I totally respect it, and there are serious researchers. But as I said, I really believe that I mean, everybody else should have also the chance to reach for that. And I mean, you have to do your professional work, but uh, on the road, you might stop for as you said, like YouTube short or something like that to show people what you do because they're also interested. Um, but about this approach, this is like the general approach. But if you talk about the academic, the research approach, it also have some measures into it. And with the years, I watched my colleagues or articles work and see how they look at things and how I look at things. And I found out that first I would preferably use, if there's a question, most of our work is questions. You have, is it this site? Is it that site? Is this wall related to that building or not? And so on. Is look for the more simple explanation. The simple explanation would be more the right one. So not looking for, is it like cultural, whatever. Is it, if I can find a technical explanation for why they build that wall this way or another, I would prefer this technical explanation. That's one. And the other is, as my career took me through so many excavations, dozens of excavations that I ran, and I touched so many periods in history. Some people focus the whole life in a specific period, in a specific area, and they are the expert for that thing, but they are less aware of other periods. And as you said, this heritage for the people that live here, I mean, it could be Christians, Muslims, Jews, pagans, or whatever. It could be 100 years ago. It could be 10,000 years ago. They are all part of the heritage of this place. So I'm trying to, when I look at the find, I'm trying to look at it in the regional aspect, like trying to understand how that site, how that house, how that pottery shard reflect or works with the other artifacts around it. So it could be, for instance, as I said, my master's degree was surveying the Beit Shan Valley, the Tel Rehov region. Beit Shan is a major city, and Rehov are both major cities in the Israelite kingdom in the 9th, 8th, 7th centuries BC, the Old Testament period. How do those cities relate to the villages and the fields around them? Because, I mean, when you excavate a city, so where do people go to work? How did the commerce, the roots were at that period of time, and so on. So that's another aspect of my approach.
Wow. And I have this picture in my mind of just zooming out instead of zooming in. I have this idea of where you're looking at history and you're not just seeing the trees, you're seeing the forest.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
I'm aiming for. I'm trying
Yeah.
to, it's not always easy.
I love that. And well, let's pivot and let's talk about what's going on with Bethsaida. Why is this so significant? What can you tell us about this ancient town? For many who are listening right now, they've never heard of this word before or this town. And for many who grew up maybe reading the Bible, they are familiar, And this is surprising news, the idea that this ancient town is found. It's there. It's in the ground. Um, so can you tell us about it and its history, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah. So you mentioned Chorazin. I excavate Chorazin for 10 years now. And we're going in here to a field which is called geographical history. The field which is trying to connect the historical sources to the geographical scene. Like, say, where did the Israelite cross the Red Sea? I mean, you have to take the Bible, the sources, cross them, and go to the field, open maps, and try to follow the routes they were walking. Just one example. The main geographical history issues in the Holy Land. I mean, you've got so many sources talking about the history of this land. If you from the Old Testament to the New Testament, and Josephus Flavius, the Jewish historian of the first century, and the pilgrims that came up later. So many people are describing the places they were going through, or things that happened, miracles that happened to this side or another side, and you want to know, okay, so where is that site? What made this site so special? Why is it here and not there, and so on? So you're trying to follow the routes, follow the story, and connect it to the map and saying, okay, this is this side or this is that side. And the earliest works were done even in the 13th century. Scholars in the 13th century would, for instance, I can mention a guy named Achia who came from Spain and took the Bible and walked around and looked for those sites, and he already realized back there in the Middle Ages, he realized that you can find the same names after millennia or 2 millennia of the story that you read. Some of the names of the site are still there, used in the locals by them. They may be Arabs, Muslims, Christians, Jews, whatever, were living still. For instance, Jerusalem had its name. I mean, it's the Romans changed it to Ilia Capitolina, and in Greek it was Jerusalema. In Arabic, El Quds. But they all know El Quds is the temple, the holy place, and they all knew that they were talking about Jerusalem. And let's take another site, Chorazin. We said Chorazin. Chorazin is mentioned in the Jewish rabbinical text, in sages. It's mentioned in the New Testament 2,000 years ago. And then you walk around the Galilee, and you're looking for a Jewish village, as ruins, with a name which preserves it. Now, it's obviously not precisely pronounced the same, but there is a place called, in Arabic, Khirbet Karaza, the ruins of Karaza. Now, Karaza, Chorazin, Galilee.
Karaza, Chorazin.
Join 1 + 1, and you get, okay, this is a site. Same for Capernaum. Capernaum is known for being the base of the evangelical pilgrim of Jesus and his disciples. And Capernaum preserved its name as Tel Khum, Kfar Nahum in Hebrew, in Arabic. So it's close. And we know that Capernaum was a village of fisheries, and it is Tel Khum, that site is on the Sea of Galilee. Right. So you join both the name, if it's preserved, and the location, because looking for a fisherman's village, it should be on the shore of the village of the lake. So you join those texts from history on one side and the geography on the other side, and then you say, okay, this is a site. But there is another leg to that approach. You have to show that the site you're suggesting has also the archaeology fitting it. For instance, if you're looking for Capernaum and Chorazin, and you're saying, okay, this is a site, you have to show that you have remains of a Jewish village from the time of Jesus. Because if there isn't, it's not a place. You might, maybe the name has traveled, maybe you've got something else on it, but it can't be the site. Okay, so three legs. One is the a description of the site in history. Second is the name, has it been preserved, and third, the archaeology, which suits or not this your hypothesis there. For Chorazin and for Capernaum, it works really nice, and everybody knows those other sites. Bethsaida, on the other side, has been in debate for the last 150 years because it didn't preserve the name. And what do we know from history, from Josephus Flavius, from the New Testament, from the rabbinical text about Bethsaida? We know that Bethsaida is a fisherman's village. It's on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, very close to it. It should be on the east side of the Jordan because it says that they are crossing to the other side, meaning if Capernaum is on the west side, they're coming from Capernaum, Jesus and the disciples, and so Bethsaida should be on the east side of the Jordan River.
On the opposite side, yeah. I can visualize that, yes.
And it's not too far from the Jordan River itself, on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee. So even if you don't know the geography, it's pretty, you get a pretty good visualization of what you're looking for. A village not too far from the Jordan River on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, because the famous saying of fishermen of men was there. Because we know that St. Peter and Philip are from Bethsaida. They came from Bethsaida. And multiplying of the fish was in the fields of that village and so on. So if you're looking for the history of Christianity, the origins of Christianity, this is a major site, the site of where the first disciple, the head of the disciples, Peter, came from. And actually, a quarter of the disciples came from this village.
Wow.
So it's a major site. And for us, even if, I'm Jewish, but, they were also Jewish. Well, disciples. Well, Jews as any other person around. And so it's very, really interesting for me. And as a scholar, I want to know where is the site mentioned in the historical sources. So this is the goal. And what are the candidates? There are two sites, archaeological sites, which might fit the description. One is named Ertel, and the other is called El Araj. Both Arabic names which do not recall of any of the side beside them. And so these were suggested for the last 150 years as the locations of that site, the Jewish village of 2,000 years ago, beside it.
These two different towns, if you will, these in their Arabic pronunciations, are they close to each other? Are they connected? Are they relatively near?
They are about a mile and a half apart from each other. So generally they are in the same vicinity, but they're not the same size.
And is Tel Araj, is this right on the water? Is it right on the Galilee?
So why are you asking that? Because you're looking for the fishermen, right?
Yeah.
So it begins this way because the first site which was excavated was the other site, the site of Atel. The site of Atel was excavated since the 1980s by Professor Rami Arav from your university, from Oklahoma University. And he's
Surprising.
originally Israeli, but
Wow.
he taught for many years in Oklahoma, and he came to dig here. Uh, Excavation season, as you know, and maybe not all the listeners know, excavation season is taking place for a few weeks in the summer. And he excavated this site, and he's got a marvelous site with marvelous finds, mainly from the Old Testament period, meaning like the Israelite, uh, 8th, 9th century BC, the largest gate, city gates ever found in Israel is there, and many other very important artifacts and buildings. But he also claimed very early on in his excavation that this is also Bethsaida. And why did he claim that? Because he has remains of houses of Jews in in this site, so on the excavation. So he said, okay, we've got a Jewish village here, and this should be Bethsaida. Now, I didn't mention before, but Josephus tells us, the historian, that Bethsaida was taken by Horus Philippus, the son of Herod the Great,
Mm.
and it was turned to his second capital, and he renamed it Julius after the daughter of Augustus, the Caesar he was working for, you might say.
Mm.
And then you should expect also not just a Jewish village, but also some remains of uh,
A
uh,
Roman presence.
Roman presence, like uh, columns and the temple and the bathhouse and so on.
Mm.
So you should not only look for the location and the Jewish village, but also maybe some Roman city features when you're excavating. And he claims also that he found some um, architectural elements and vessels that he relates to Roman cult. So he says, okay, so this site Atel is the site of Bethsaida. Now, as you said, you asked, is it on the water? So no. So the site Atel, or excavated by Professor Rami Arav, is about a mile and a half away from the water. But
Mm.
he said it's no problem because he also found fishing weights made of lead, and he claims that he did. We found geological research and found that sometimes there was a lagoon reaching from the Sea of Galilee to the site of Atel, and he says, okay, this is a time where this fisherman's Peter were living there, and this explains this gap of a mile and a half away from the lake.
Wow. And and as we fast forward to present day, um, so we have these decades and decades of attempting to find the biblical, the actual town. What and today you're joined with Dr. Aviam and Dr. Notley. Um, how did you come to work together with them at this excavation, and what makes this research and this excavation so significantly different?
So it's a funny story. First, I would give all credit to those two teachers that you mentioned, Professor Avian, the Israeli archaeologist, and Professor Notley, the American geographer history. So Professor Notley, throughout the years, said no, Atel site mentioned before and excavated and declared as the site it is not the right site to it. The other side, El Araj, is the right site. But he's an historian. He specializes in text and analyzing it, and he's not an archaeologist. So he joined forces with Professor Avian and trying to prove that, looking for the right Bethsaida for his opinion in the other side LRI. So what you have to do is excavate it and show that you have first a Jewish village of the first century on the water, and secondly, maybe remains of this Romanization of the village later on. And more than that, if you can show that the Christian tradition also connects to this site, maybe even to the 5th, 4th century CE, they were much closer to us, to Jesus. So they might know something that we don't know. And maybe you can show that there is a Christian tradition related to the site you're claiming, El Araj in this case. So they started excavating in 2016. I was very lucky to be there. I was just doing, some logistics for Professor Avian there. And he asked me to help around a bit. And I started, explaining to the volunteers, okay, so you find this. So this is like late Roman headwear bow, which is so-and-so, and this means that and so on. And soon enough, Professor Notley asked Professor Avian, listen, we want that guy in our team because he explains to us what we are doing and not just tells us, okay, move that dirt or dig there or dig here. And so since then, I'm privileged to work with this pair. And my job there is I run the field operation. So, and Professor Notley and Professor Avian are in charge. You have to get the money, you have to get the volunteers, you have to deal with all the licensing and public relations and whatever. And I do what's field archaeology. And and what I really love about this as a team, the people you work with, not only the volunteers, which I mean, I can not appreciate enough a person who comes from Hong Kong, from Oklahoma, from wherever you are, and come and dig, looking for your heritages. I can really appreciate it. But also the team that we're working with at Professor Avian and Professor Notley gathered, they are all very good people. And it's starting to work together. And this is so important. You all know when you work with people, you want to work with people that you can, you appreciate. And I really appreciate every other person we're working with. And so since then we're working, and it's so in 2016, since 2016, we have seasons. We had a gap during COVID, obviously. But we just finished about a month ago the 9th season of excavation.
Wow, 9 seasons. This is a very long ongoing project, and it tells me that it's an important one with such a long, so many years of excavation. There's more to find. Okay, so let's talk about that now. What has been found at Bethsaida? And I just want to say to the audience, I want you to really pay attention now, because I want Dr. Achia to really explain some very interesting discoveries that has been splashed on the news and different news outlets. And if you don't mind sharing, what are some highlights of things that have been discovered there at Bethsaida?
So yes, first, we're excavating for 9 years now, but you have to understand that archaeology, as we have to document and we have to be very precise about our work, and it's very, very slow. We excavated so far maybe 1% of the site.
Wow.
And this is even quick for archaeology. And first, I have to say, we don't want to excavate all the site, because archaeologists in the generations to come they'll have a much larger database, and they have more tools, technologies that we are not aware now. So we want to leave them also the opportunity to excavate there, because you can't re-excavate the place which was excavated already. And but from day one, literally day one, we found that we have a massive architecture in this site. So we really had the base to think that we are onto something. And just give you the general background of it. So the site is right on the water. There is a 150 years old farm that was built there. It's made of basalt stone, volcanic rock, so most of it is still standing, and it's a picturesque place with the eucalyptus trees and the water and the river, and it's a lovely place to be. And but right when you go beneath the surface of this level of the modern farmhouse, which is only 150 years old, you hit walls, and you excavate, you straight away hit walls all made of that basalt stone. And so and after 9 years, I can say we have differentiated 5 different layers of habitation in this site. And for me as an archaeologist, was trained for looking for different layers. I mean, obviously, a village doesn't stand for 2,000 years or whatever. It's destroyed, and then you have to rebuild, and then again rebuild and rebuild. So we have the whole concept of a ruin or a tell, which is a layer above layer above layer of habitation, and obviously each layer has different features to it. Is it the architecture would be different? The usage of materials would be different. The artifacts which you find inside in it, first the pottery, the coins, the glass, all different from period to period. I mean, it's not. I mean, pottery from the 3rd century is not as the same as the pottery from the 1st century. As just iPhone in 2025 is not the iPhone of 2015. And everybody can understand this feature. So we are digging down, and obviously we're beginning with the upper levels. You peeling this onion from top to bottom. It was built from bottom up. So I'll tell you from bottom up to have
good.
I mean, it's easier to follow. We are beginning our story in around 100 BCE. 100 years before Jesus, the first Jews are coming to the Galilee, and under the Hasmoneans, the Judahite kingdom is conquering Galilee and sending Jews up to the Galilee to settle. All those villages that we mentioned, Capernaum and Magdala and Chorazin and Bethsaida, all based on those people that came around 100 BC and settled those places and built those villages. And we're not talking about towns, we're talking about, I mean, cities, we're talking about villages, a few dozens of houses, and this builds up. And in some time around the 1st century BC or CE, they replace the houses. Is it this earthquake? Is it rising level of the water? Or we don't really know yet. They replace the houses and build new houses. Now we're talking about the Roman period, the early Roman period, Second Temple period, if you like it, on the Jewish side, and which is the 1st century. The 1st century, we have so far excavated in several areas. We are spreading our areas of excavation around the site, so we get different glimpse into it, and we have so far found very nice architectural houses from the 1st century. And we can also say that this is a Jewish village. And why is that? Because the Jews in the time of Jesus in the 1st century were obsessed about purity. And we know it from the history, and we know it also from archaeology, because purity is concept in Judaism that you have to eat like kosher. Everybody knows about kosher. Kosher is one aspect of purity. You're also not allowed, I mean, if you touch a dead person, that's the highest level of impurity. So you have to
Mm.
purify, you have to bathe, and so on. Some vessels can get unpurified, and some vessels not. So they were using some vessels which will not get unpurified, like stone vessels. By the Jewish law, a stone vessel cannot turn impurified. So we find stone vessels, and stone vessels are the hallmark of the Jewish presence in the first century. We also have specific oil lamps, which were made in Jerusalem by Jews for Jews. So we know we are the first century Jewish village, which is obviously very important to get to it. We also have some modification in those houses because it continues for about 300 years or 250 years. And inside of that, we also have the remnants of a bathhouse. And a bathhouse is, again, what you would expect in a Roman city. Or
Very Roman, yes.
is turned into a Roman city, Julius,
Mm.
of Herod Antipas, Philippus, sorry, Herod Philippus. And we'll get to that obviously later, but let's continue on with the layers. So
Okay.
it is destroyed in around 270, 280 CE in what we probably is an earthquake or something tectonic happening. We should remember we are right on the Jordan River, and the whole site is covered with silt, which was poured by the river. Is it a flood? Is it an earthquake which changed the route of the river? We don't know. But anyway, the house are destroyed, and we find lots of find there. Metal, glass, bottles, pottery, obviously, coins, and so on. I should mention one very interesting find, which is a inkwell, which was
Mm.
found there. But this village is destroyed and abandoned. And the abandonment also could be the reason for the changing of the name of the site.
Mm.
Because we said
Interest.
the name was not preserved. Capernaum and Chorazin, for instance, lived on for another millennia or so. Bethsaida ended there in the third century, late third century. But it's not the end of the story, because about 100 years later, the pilgrims, the Christian pilgrims, are coming back to the Holy Land, looking for the origins, looking for the ministry of Jesus, and adoring those places. Obviously, the most renowned places are the Church of Nativity, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and so on, but it's not the only places. So they're
Mm.
looking into this Galilee, looking, okay, where's Capernaum? Where did, was Jesus based for? And where is Bethsaida, where all those miracles which that are mentioned happen? And they come in, and someone from the vicinity, apparently, this is how we obviously see, comes with them, sails with them with his fishing boats or whatever, and says, listen, you see these ruined houses on the shore covered by this thing. This where the site was, and this is where the house of Peter, that person you're looking for, lived uh, a few centuries before. And
Mm.
so the pilgrims come and they start to renovate the place, and they build a church
Mm.
to adorn this place. And to host the pilgrims who are coming, they're building a monastery with bathhouse, with rooms, with a yard. Most the pilgrims, which they walk, they have to walk all those distances. They're not traveling by buses after all, as they do today. And this monastery lives for about 300 to 400 years.
Wow.
And we also have a description by a German bishop coming in 725. And, pilgrims sometimes tell what they see. And back then it was in books. And this person Willibald, this bishop,
Bill.
is
Yeah.
part of the story, and he's saying that he stayed overnight in the Church of the Apostles in Bethsaida.
Mhm. So we have mention of this in an old record, even then. And this is this the what we would call the Byzantine era? Is this around that time period?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I have to put it upon something here. They didn't see themselves as Byzantine, unlike the Romans. Okay, you are under the Roman Empire, so it's a Roman period. The Byzantines saw themselves as Romans because they were the direct continuation of the Roman Empire, but they were the Eastern Roman Empire, ruled from Constantinople, today Istanbul, rather than Rome. And they were practicing Christianity. They accepted Christianity, unlike the Romans, who were obviously pagans. So this is what we call the Byzantines. And we're talking here in the from the 4th to the 7th centuries CE, when they built the monastery, had the pilgrims coming, and
And during this time period, has the architecture um, has it changed dramatically from the early Roman to the middle or late Roman? Has it changed very much? Is it still kind of the same? This church, um, when you're looking at the architecture or the style, um, is it Roman in style? This church?
so obviously they had some continuation in culture, in art, in construction, and so on. But there are, I mean, if you're talking from the 1st, even the 3rd century to the 5th, 6th century, there are major differences. First, they were looking less for the um, how things look, the appearance of things. Like if you go to a Roman city, you look for you see the columns and the temples, and it looks so impressive, and so on. In the Byzantine era, they're more looking for more the message behind it. So, for instance, they will not be very articulated about the how the emperor looks physically, like the Romans, the sculptures, you know the Roman sculptures and stuff. And the Byzantine sculpture would more give the spirit of the person, or what they supposed to be, a very important, big person. So the emperor would look in the Christian art bigger, or if you're a saint, obviously you are bigger than the people around you, which are ordinary people. And the same for the buildings themselves, because in a Roman temple, where is the worshippers coming to? They're coming to sacrifice animals, and this is happening outside the temple itself, on the altar. By the way, same in ancient Judaism in Jerusalem. The altar is outside, and you come with the sheep or the bull, and you sacrifice it outside the temple. You're not allowed to enter the building, and the building itself is massive. As we all know, Roman temples, Greek temples, very impressive, very big, very decorated, stonework decorated from the outside, because people are looking from the outside. But this is not the case for the Byzantine period when you're talking about synagogues and churches. Synagogue and churches in Hebrew is a knesset. A knesset is kinus, is gathering people. The aim of the church and the synagogue is getting people together inside the house. So it wouldn't be as grand from the outside, but it would be decorated from the inside, and it would be built to fit the congregation, lay people inside. So it's a totally different architecture, and you can really see it in the site.
It is very impressive. The when you're looking at these artifacts that are coming out of the ground, you have um, coins and pottery, you have glass, all sorts of material, even metals, perhaps. w- when when you're looking at all of this, uh, are they being found within their layers, and are you finding this within the Roman layer, and do you find these same items sometimes in other layers, or is it difficult to distinguish? Are you looking at say later layers, and it's like, whoa, what is the Roman coin doing over here? Why is it over here? Does this happen sometimes, or?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I will. I mean, I didn't mention the latest habitation there because in the Crusader period, we're talking 12th to 14th century, they built into the monasteries. They built a sugar factory. The sugar production in the Jordan Valley was massive in the Crusader period because they exported, sorry, sugar to Europe through the Crusaders, through the Venetians and the Genovesians. So they produced sugar, and they didn't really care about the church or the earlier remains, but they reused the remains, the walls that were still standing, to build their sugar factory. And obviously, it wasn't as grand as a church or a temple or anything else. And they, as each habitation is obviously using materials from the earlier layer, and what we call it stratigraphy. I mean, this striations which are built one above the other, this onion that we're peeling. And if it was like separated one from another, it would be very easy, but obviously it's not. And as you said, many of the artifacts are mixed. First, they could, if they dig a piece, they ruin the what's built before. We know of a modern pit which was dug through the mosaic of the church in 1926, and we were lucky enough to have a pilgrim that passed there, and he said, "Listen, they are doing innovation in this farm, and they hit colored mosaic." And this is 1926. So when we came in 2016, we were looking for that. It took us 4 years to find that mosaic, which is obviously the mosaic of the church. And so they damaged the mosaic, which was laying there for 1,500 years. And they all, obviously, that pit is mixed material from the modern, through the Crusader, through the Byzantine, through the Roman layers. And most of our work is, as we dig correctly and document what we take apart as we go, and later on try to put it all back in pottery, the coins, the architecture, the photos, and trying to put it all together and tell the story. Okay, this is in situ in its original place, or has moved as artifact from this site to another, and so on.
This mosaic that you mentioned, I think it was also all over headlines and news articles. There is it is an inscription. Many temples, synagogues, churches usually have a dedicatory. Is this a dedicatory mosaic inscription on the floor of this church that was discovered?
So that's right. That's totally right. So, when people donate money for something, they want their names on it. They get, the position in the community for donating the money. And I didn't mention my PhD is with Professor Avian about churches, Byzantine period churches, just like the one here. And most churches would have, in the floor of the mosaic, decorated mosaic, would have dedication inscriptions, and those usually are in the center of the church, obviously, because you want your name to be seen by all the visitors, by all the pilgrims in this case. And we did find two inscriptions in the church, in the center of the church, but they were both very damaged. One of them is half missing, and one of them we just have a few letters. So we were very, very disappointed. It was 2021, I think, that we found them. And because if that inscription originally mentioned Bethsaida or Peter, it would give us a smoking gun to show, okay, we are in Bethsaida, and this would be the best. But they were very damaged.
And Dr. Achia, I wanted to ask you, this location, why is this location important, not just to Christians and Catholic people alike, obviously because of the biblical ties to Peter, but why is this location important for, say, for the Jewish community, and even there in Israel?
So it's a very good question. It's not to be taken and granted, because history has many facets to it, and there were definitely centuries where Jews were suffering from Christianity. So today, obviously, we are talking and work with Christians all the time, and my neighbors are Christians and so on, and it's 99% great, but still in Jewish memory, the Inquisition, for instance, stuff like that, this is still a living memory with Jews. And so having a Christian site would look for some Israelis not part of their culture, and some still needs to listen for a few words before they will be persuaded, because this way or another, when we are talking about Jesus, when we're talking about Peter, they were Jews after all. We were practicing Jews. They knew nothing about Christianity, although they invented Christianity. and it's not obvious for some, but those people living in this village were Jews, and looking for Jews in the Holy Land in Israel is obviously interesting if you're Israeli. And I would add more than that, even the church, the Christian church, totally Christian. There were, the Byzantine Christian emperor was not that nice for the Jews under his empire, but still, I think that this is part of the heritage of this land. You cannot focus only on Jews in the Holy Land, because it likes looking through a very narrow hole into history. There are many facets to it than your neighbors today, your neighbors back then, the pagans, the Christians, the Canaanites, whatever. They are all part of the heritage of this land. If you want to know the heritage and the history and the archaeology of this land, it concerns everybody, also churches. And if you want to, again, prove for it, this is a great case, because if you want to prove that this is beside of the whole, this Jewish village of 2,000 years ago, you have the Christians, the church, to help you prove it.
And also, very importantly, it has taken Jewish eyes to see the artifacts of the remnants, that this was a Jewish community living in this land at this time. As you've mentioned before, there were ritual artifacts of purity, and in the stoneware, as you've mentioned before, and I think this is very important for the heritage of the Jewish people in this land. to find those material objects there that I think even only someone who is familiar with the Jewish culture and ritual can see those objects in that way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely many scholars, I mean, Jewish scholars are dealing with this, either historians or um, um, Jewish liturgy, and of course archaeologists. But I definitely should mention many other non-Jewish researchers. Like Capernaum was excavated by Franciscan monks, and they did marvelous work. And of course, you have to know the material you're coming to excavate, and it does help if, for instance, you know Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, or whatever. For instance, to interpret the finds that you're finding on the way.
And aside from this discovery of this basilica style church there, are there any other notable discoveries in the recent excavations? I know you just finished with the season, am I correct, with the 2025 season? It has just concluded. um, Anything that you can share with us today about?
So, I mentioned before, and I should really emphasize that um, that we found the earliest Hasmonean first century BC layer, because this was not obvious for us. There's an issue there. The lake, the Sea of Galilee, is rising through the winter and going down, evaporating through the summer. And interestingly enough, the archaeology is going underwater through the winter.
Oh,
Um, so in some of the, I mean, most of the last years, some of the layers were totally submerged, and you can excavate it. The last season, unfortunately, the last rain season was we had less rain, so the level of the lake is the lowest in years. So we were able to hit and go down all the way. We're talking, yeah, 3.5 meters, which is like 15, 20 feet down, in order to get to the Hasmonean first century habitation layers. And this was for me this season. It was very important to touch this layer and really see that we have the earliest habitation. So this is like from 2025. And the other issue, which was, I mean, as you said, Sergio and Rhoda had a very interesting video about church with no doors. And the basilica, we had two main stages, and the last stage, I mean, it's sealed. Okay, we have the very nice preservations of the walls, and it seems that the last stage, I cannot explain it, and I cannot say how and why, by the apparently cautiously saying the church in the last stage was rebuilt as a closed uh, building that you cannot enter.
strange.
And
Okay.
this is so strange. And the main tool of an archaeologist researching is finding parallels for an artifact. For instance, in Chorazin, just 3 years ago, 11-year-old girl found an artifact. She picked it up, she showed me, and it was a fork, a kitchen fork.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
familiar with this because I have one in my kitchen, few, but that's the only fork ever found in archaeological excavation in the world. In the
Wow.
so
That's
you need
fascinating.
yeah, that's a story by itself. But the thing is, you need parallels to show. But if you want to show that there is the reason for a sealing of a church, you need to find other churches this way, or cultic buildings or whatever. We don't have anything like it in the world.
Wow.
So far. I mean, maybe if you know, well, you tell us. And one of the listeners, about a sealed church. Why would we take a pilgrimage site and seal it off
Mhm.
coming? And so today we this season we opened another section in the side of the basilica in order to try to understand the stages and what's happening there. But I can tell you that the only thing that we got is more questions.
Wow. And uh, well, there's, as you know, and I want to say to the audience, if you have any idea, please email Achia, email him, and some insights if you know. um, uh, well, I, as we wrap up this podcast and as we're coming to a conclusion, um, and you've answered so many of my questions, and I want to ask you so many more questions, but we don't have all the time in the world, unfortunately. um, I um, I guess I would love to ask you, what what are your expectations, or what, if that's a right thing to have, like, a what do you look forward to in the coming seasons, um, here at Bethsaida? What do you look forward to, or what are you hoping to find, that would just really help the research along?
So two aims, I would say. I mean, if you're talking about major finds that would, as we have, as I said, few major finds so far, but we would like first a major Roman building, a bathhouse, a temple, which would again prove that we are talking about Bethsaida turning into Julia's Roman city by Herod Philippus. And the other one would be the synagogue of the Jewish village, because this would be the synagogue, just like in Chorazin, we found the remains of the synagogues of the first century in which Jesus preached. Finding a synagogue of the village, not only the church of the monastery a few centuries later, would be immense. And we have some ideas about where to look for it, but it's underground. We have no idea, but we really hope that our next idea will prove that we can find both the Roman public buildings and the Jewish public buildings, which is the synagogue from the time of Jesus.
Well, there's so much more to still excavate. And as you've said, only a very small percentage has really been uncovered. There's so much more, and I think that different applications are being applied, like GPR, ground penetrating radar. I think scanning. I think
Yeah.
scanning, aerial scanning, uh, and hopefully with that, and some technology, and a lot of hands and volunteers. And I want to say to the audience, uh, excavation needs a lot of hands. We
And
need
a lot of
all.
sweat.
Yes. um, Dr. Achia, can you share with the audience, what if they come and volunteer with you out there, either at Chorazin or Bethsaida, what should they expect when they come and volunteer? What is that like for them?
So there are a few options to volunteer in excavations around Israel, more Old Testament, New Testament, different sites, even Middle Ages, whatever. And usually most excavation would take you only if you're willing to at least a week, if not 2 weeks or 3 weeks of excavation. And that would require at least some physical ability to excavate. And this would be like 6, 7, 8 hours of work for 5 days a week. and depends in the excavation. And most excavation, not all, most of them are in the summer, and it could be into the 90s and the hundreds Fahrenheit. So yes, and
Need a
on the
hat.
other side, yeah.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, I think that when you come to work with people who are dedicated and interested, this is the best. And even if it's hot, and I mean, you can always find your corner, and you work with people who are with you on the same line. And it's the best. It's I mean, I can say about Bethsaida, you can come for the summer of 2026 and excavate. Hopefully, even a few seasons afterwards, you just look Bethsaida excavation, and come and dig with us. And I really love to see you there. And it's a community. It's a real community, and I love working with people. Some people come for years and years, year after year,
Wow.
and to excavate it. All you need to pay, of course, flight,
Yeah.
your the accommodation and stuff. So I mean, but the experience of being part of such a thing is immense, and you have to sweat a lot. And as I said, I have my work is also including as an opportunity for everybody who even comes for a very simple tour around a pilgrim around Israel. You can come just for 1 or 2 hours and work as much as you want in Chorazin and excavate this biblical site with me. So if you're not capable of 2 weeks or 3 weeks of hard labor and just want to really find all that
Sorry.
stuff, so get in touch with me. I'll I'll get you there. I'll take you there. You'll be able to understand all those things we were talking about in the last hour and so and
Yes.
beyond.
Uh,
And
And check out Dr. Achia's Facebook. Look at those pictures. He puts a lot of pictures, and I think he just uploaded a video of the season, the dig season, that the finds and all of that, and and you'll see a lot of happy faces out there. They're probably very sweaty faces because they've been excavating, and that's part of the fun. And I want to say that Israel is a beautiful country. You have everything up in the north. It's green and luscious, and there's snow on the mountains. And down in the south, it's you have your desert landscapes for a different kind of landscape, and then you have the beautiful coastline with beautiful beaches like in Tel Aviv. Um, so even if you go to vacation and visit a beautiful country like Israel, uh, volunteer and make your childhood dream of I've always wanted to be an archaeologist. I hear this a lot from everybody. Oh, I've always dreamed of this. Well, you can do it. You can join an excavation. Here you have an actual archaeologist with years of experience, and you can connect with him, and he needs more help. He needs volunteers who are excited and ready to connect with the history. And Dr. Achia, I am very honored and grateful for your time, and for you to come on this podcast to discuss your research and your experience with me. It has been very lovely, um, and uh, and I want to just say shalom to you and your family, and thank your family for me as well. If they are waiting for you for dinner or something, I want to thank them for
thank
for your time as well,
I
for
will.
coming on here.
And thank you for having me and hosting me.
Yes, and um, and maybe in the near future or sometime again, you can come on again and share with us more insight as to what is going on there in Israel in your excavations. Yes.
I'd love to. Yeah.
You are listening to the Archangels, and until next time, I will see you again. Dr.
Shalom.
Achia,
Wow.
thank you.
Thank
Shalom. Shalom.